bit on the environment before and said that's a key issue of yours. Let's talk about energy. Now, obviously, the two fields are very closely related to each other, energy and the environment. But energy policy right now is very much an economic issue as well as an environmental issue. And we still have no comprehensive energy policy in this country, other than let's go beat up the guys with the oil.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can remember going back to the first energy crisis back in the Carter administration, and I know you go back that far too, Steve.
Oh yeah, easily.
So
easily.
Every single State of the Union address that I can remember since that time, there's always been this pounding on the podium by the president and standing ovation from the members of Congress that by such and such a time we're going to be energy independent. The situation is worse now than it's ever been.
Clearly.
So clearly the Congress basically is bought and paid for on this issue, and they haven't been able to get beyond an oil, petrochemical based energy system. And I think that eventually people are going to insist that people that have a different point of view represent them, because it is, you want to talk about issues of national security, that's an issue of national security. So how do you address the problem? One thing that we've proven in the past for short periods of time is that energy conservation can make tremendous impacts on our usage.
Mm-hmm.
If there's an ethic and if there is a plan and if there is a will to do that. And I don't think the American mentality has changed so much in the last 50, 60, 100 years. It's always been, if you tell the American people what the mission is and make the case that they need to make certain adjustments, I don't want to say sacrifices, because I don't think that that's a necessary term. We don't need to sacrifice, we need to make adjustments.
It's a patriotic thing to do.
Absolutely, has to be.
Just as much as we have those little ribbon-shaped stickers on the back of cars, it's patriotic to conserve energy.
But here's a good example of where it's important that we get people with a technical background and also with a certain mindset in solving problems into Congress that we don't have now. Right now, decisions are made based on individual issues that are primarily driven by lobbyists for people that have a very single narrow interest in something happening or not happening.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to energy, here's an example. We have our infrastructure, our road infrastructure, bridges and roads and so forth, are now American Society of Civil Engineers gives them a D-. We all know you have to see as bridges, that are corroding and crumbling and roads that are full of potholes and so forth to know that our transportation infrastructure is in a lot worse shape than it's ever been.
Not to mention some of the newer tunnels that are falling apart and killing
right.
people.
That's another show.
Mm-hmm.
But we also are spending so much time in traffic jams commuting, which is taking time away from our families, is burning up energy because cars are sitting, 150 or 160 horsepower are sitting, going nowhere, jumping up and down. If you had sort of visualized all these horses out on 128, all just sort of jumping up and down, we could go to a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week. We could, through tax incentives, encourage firms to invest in telecommunications, teleconferencing, networking, and so forth. How many of us operate our business? I operate my business now out of my home.
Mm.
I do have an office at the airport that, you know, takes care of certain export things and so forth, but I don't need to drive to the airport every day and drive back, because I got a telephone, I've got a computer, I've got the internet, and these tools give us tremendous power that we never had before, and they give us options.
But what we need is a policy.
But we need a policy and a plan. If you reduced the commuting by 1 day a week,
save 20%
20% of the energy that you're spending sitting in traffic, going nowhere, polluting the air for global warming, that addresses that issue. Taking time away from our families, that addresses a whole quality of life issue. And now if you make the tax incentives encourage companies to make investments in all of this equipment, you're driving industry, important industry that we have a particular expertise in, to produce more equipment. That's jobs. So by making one sort of...
And it isn't even as though you have to reduce the number of hours per week that somebody works.
No.
You could have a 4-day week with 10 hours a day, and it's still a 40-hour week.
But you could also have it that somebody spends 1 day they can spend working at home.
Tough to do that if you pump gas for a living, but you know.
No, but we're talking about a significant percentage of the population. Now we're talking
white-collar jobs.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about going back to cottage industries of doing clothing sewing at home. But
look at the number of people that are operating that way now.
Oh,
it's
yes,
increasing
quite a few.
all the time.
Quite
and
a few.
Big industries can do the same thing. You don't have to go into Boston 5 days a week and be in a skyscraper, you know, to get a job done.
That's right, exactly.
So it's that kind of integrated problem solving that we need to apply, where we can take certain steps that address a lot of issues at the same time, and we can solve these problems.